Crystal Howell, a women's health and orthopedic physical therapist, as well as a personal trainer. Today we're gonna go over exercises that we can start doing at 32 weeks of pregnancy to help get your baby over your hips so your baby's in the right spot, as well as to start to soften up our pelvic floor and hips and release tension. Because if you've ever seen those little stickers that say, my baby's the size of a pumpkin, a watermelon, that's a lot of pressure down here. So we wanna loosen up this area before labor and delivery. So the first thing that we're gonna do is standing baby hug. So for this, I'm gonna put my feet 2 feet away from the wall. My back is on the wall, my chest is on the wall. I'm gonna think about pulling baby in to give him a hug using my abdominal muscles. So you should feel your back flatten against the wall when we do this, and then I'm gonna let it go. And then I'm gonna squeeze and hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let baby go. There'll be an arch in your back again. And then we're gonna squeeze up and in for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm gonna inhale down my spine. Think of relaxing my pelvic floor. As I exhale, I'm gonna think of scooping my pelvic floor back up, tailbone towards belt line, squeezing baby in using my transverse abdominal muscles. So you're gonna see a flattening of your bump. And I'm gonna exhale again. One last time, inhale, pull baby up, give them a nice big hug. Tell your baby, I am safe, we are safe, we are prepping for labor and delivery. I can't wait to meet you. And let that go. And then let's head to the ground here. Next up is side lying thoracic rotation. So for this, I'm gonna bring my hands in front of me. I am laying on my side. I'm gonna think about opening up. So I'm gonna inhale. As I open, I'm gonna exhale, close. The trick that I love to do is to use a foam roller, a towel, a dumbbell. I'm pressing down with my leg, and then I'm thinking about rotating back. The nice thing about this is look at how much shorter that is, because that is what my true rotation is. So during pregnancy, we tend to get super tight here. We're gonna go through a couple of these together. So I'm gonna inhale back, squeezing my leg down, opening my chest up. I like to take a second right at the end to kind of like sink into the stretch and allow my body to relax. And then I'm gonna come forward. Most moms have really, really tight pecs. Their chests are really tight. At the end of pregnancy, our chest starts to kind of roll back. So we're decreasing that amount of space. And again, that's taking baby a little bit further back instead of right up and over that pelvis to put them in a good position. We're gonna do 2 more on this side. So I'm gonna inhale. At the end, I like to start to exhale, creating that space, bringing it back forward. I'm gonna inhale and exhale. Okay, I'm gonna switch to the other side. So to do that safely, I'm gonna come up onto my forearm and I'm gonna twist my body around. I'm gonna put my little dumbbell there or foam roller, whatever you're using. I'm gonna use my top leg and anchor that down. And then I'm gonna open up using my breath. The first few are gonna feel really, really restricted. And as you keep going, you should start to feel that puppy loosen up. Exhale and relax. So people will get really caught up on like, inhale, win, exhale, win. Just breathe. Whatever feels good in your body at this time, besides holding your breath, we just really want to work that breath. Okay, so now let's come up onto all fours. And what I want to do is cat-cow. Often when people do this, they kind of do it incorrectly because when they come down, they're not thinking about this mid-back area coming up towards the ceiling like an angry cat. So we're really gonna push through our arms, And then we're gonna let our belly hang and our neck comes up. If you don't wanna push your belly down because you feel like more tension on your abdominals, you don't have to go all the way into that. But again, I'm gonna push up and I'm really thinking about gaining space here. I'm gonna breathe in, thinking about breathing into my bra line, and that feels so good. And then I'm gonna exhale, let my head come up, tail comes up. I'm thinking about pulling my tailbone up this way to create more space in my pelvic floor. I'm gonna drop that head again. I'm gonna get my shoulders really wide. Right in between my shoulder blades is coming up towards the ceiling as much as I can. I'm thinking about with my hands, I'm pulling them apart. So starting to create a little bit of isometric tension in my shoulder blades as I go into that stretch. That feels so good. You might feel one side of your back tighter than the other. I'm gonna allow that to drop, head up, butt up, and then coming back the other way into that angry cat position. I'm breathing here. This isn't a real bump, but if it was, you would see me squeezing baby up towards my spine as much as possible as I'm doing this. And then dropping down. And then I'm gonna squeeze baby up. Give them a nice big hug. I am so excited to meet you. And drop down. Now we're gonna do sacral rocking. So this, I might go just a little bit wider than shoulder width apart for my hips and my pelvis. I'm gonna sit back into my heels as much as I can. And then I'm gonna push forward, again, kind of dropping my pelvis towards the floor as I push forward. I'm trying to create space in my pelvic floor. We get so stuck here at the end of pregnancy. This feels really good. If your bump is getting in the way, you just want to make your knees a little bit wider so that you can have space for yourself and baby. Think about inhaling and exhaling. Exhale forward. I'm going to inhale as I come back. Thinking about my pelvic floor being like a flower that's widening or blooming. I should be able to feel that breath in my pelvic floor. This position is really nice because I already have length in my pelvic floor. I'm gonna exhale, pull baby in nice and tight for a hug, come forward, let my hips drop. I'm gonna come back into this position. I'm gonna inhale here again. And exhale, pull my hips forward. All of these exercises you'll be able to see in the Expecting an Empowered Pregnancy app. These are written into all of the strength days, both in the flexibility section and in the core section. So if you want step by step, week by week, all of these exercises live inside that app and you'll see all of these guys in there. Okay, I'm gonna come back up to quadruped or on all fours. Here I'm trying to get movement in my pelvis. So I'm gonna tuck my pelvis underneath me. So again, I'm thinking dot, 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 tailbone towards belt line, or almost like you're getting a reverse wedgie. I have brothers, so I know that well, but I'm squeezing up and in, baby's coming in for a hug, then I'm allowing my back to arch. My pelvis goes the other way, so you're gonna feel a little bit of an arch in your low back, and then I'm gonna squeeze baby in, nice and tight, hold them tight. This is really nice too, because we're getting abdominal activation here. At the end of pregnancy, this is key. Our abdominals get so stretched out, they become kind of a little wimpy. So we wanna make sure that we're doing stuff to continue to load these abdominals. So as I flatten my back, tuck my pelvis underneath, squeeze my baby up, I'm using my lower abdominals to kick on. Then I'm gonna drop that back down, pull baby up and in. Let's do one more here, pelvic clock. Pulling baby up and towards me. Not only do these exercises help us prep for labor and delivery, but they also feel so good at the end of pregnancy on an already stiff body. So I'm gonna come into a kneeling position, but then I'm gonna take one leg out to the outside. So this is triangle sit backs, and then I'm gonna sit back on my butt. I'm gonna inhale, thinking again about letting this pelvic floor area widen and relax. So I wanna think about my sits bones getting wider in between as I come back. I'm gonna come forward on my forearm or on my hands, and then slide all the way back. So an interesting fact is that 80% of labor and deliveries, the babies kind of mostly come down the left side of our pelvis. So clinically, as a physical therapist, I've seen a lot of athletes, you know, we think we're in like the best shape, but we tend to have really tight pelvic floors from all the pounding, from running or gymnastics or tennis or what have you. So especially my athletes, I really am having them focus on loosening up this area. We're gonna do 2 more on this left side. I'm gonna inhale back here. I can feel that breath connected all the way to the pelvic floor, which is really hard towards the end of pregnancy because there's a baby in your way, so it's harder to regulate pressure. That's why you might feel like you're peeing sometimes, or you might feel pressure in your pelvic floor. And then I'm gonna come forward. We wanna maintain that pressure during pregnancy so we don't have a lot of pressure. I don't like when people have pelvic floor pressure because we wanna control that as much as possible. And these kind of stretches are one way to control it, because at the end of pregnancy, the pelvic floor will start to get really tight and toned, and we want it to loosen so that there's not too much pressure on the pelvic floor. So once it loosens, then we can start to strengthen and relax, strengthen and relax. The pelvic floor becomes too tight when there's just so much pressure hanging on there. So these hip and pelvic mobility exercises are so key. It also will help you prepare for that postpartum period because we've already been working on it in pregnancy. 2 more times, I'm gonna come forward, allow my body to relax. I'm gonna come back into that seated position. I'm gonna bring my butt as close to my heels as possible. You might feel a large groin stretch in here. I'm inhaling to allow that pelvic floor to relax, and then I'm gonna come on forward. Again, we're gonna kind of dissociate the 2 sides of the pelvis. This is really helpful in labor and delivery because in the middle of labor and delivery, our baby kind of goes through our pelvis asymmetrically. So we really want to start separating these areas. You don't have to push it where it's really painful, but we're gonna do a hip flexor stretch now. So the weight goes behind your back. I like using a heavier weight because it really pulls your shoulder blades into extension. I'm thinking about squeezing those guys together. And then my forward facing leg, I am squeezing my butt underneath and pulling towards that leg so that I feel a nice heavy stretch on this left side of my leg. I'm gonna do 3 more. So I'm gonna inhale here and then exhale, pull forward. A lot of times people will start to arch their back so they can go further, but the whole goal here is allowing our hip flexor to really release. And then last one on this side. This was one of my favorite exercises at the end of my pregnancies because the hips will often get, or the ankles too, will often get so tight. So this one in the front, I like kind of driving my knee over my ankle to kind of keep that area loose as well. Again, squeeze your butt so you really feel it in your hip flexor. And if you want more ankle motion, I'm gonna bring that foot back towards me and then I can feel it more in my ankle. Pulling my shoulder blades together. I'm gonna do 2 more here. And last one. Okay, we're gonna go back into a symmetrical position. So for this one, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go use a countertop, a chair. This is a deep squat with back body breath. You can also use a doorway. Then I can really hang my weight on it. I like to keep my heels as close to the floor as possible. Once I'm in a comfortable squat position, I'm gonna think about breathing in through my nose, down my spine, right into that brow line, sending the breath all the way to the pelvic floor. Really think about creating length in this area, and then I'm gonna exhale. In between reps, you can kind of rock side to side here again, getting those ankles moving. If I didn't feel supported, I could put a block or a ball underneath here so that I could actually rest. If you're really, really tight, it's gonna be hard for you to rest here. So feel free to use any kind of support that you might need there. And then I'm gonna breathe in again. Relaxing the pelvic floor. Exhale all the way up. Often in pregnancy and postpartum, our exhales are wimpy. So we really want to press that air back out. So I'm gonna inhale in. I'm gonna hold my breath now. And then I'm gonna exhale for 8. Thinking about fully emptying my lungs, because if I have a good exhale, I'm gonna have a good inhale. So inhale in, all the way down your spine. Exhale, out your mouth. Inhale in through the nose. Hold your breath. Exhale out. As we exhale, you should feel a little rise or pull of your pelvic floor upwards, just a little slight contraction or a kegel. Next up, I'm gonna do side lying pelvic floor release. So for this exercise, I'm gonna come back onto all fours, slowly lower myself down using my elbow, and then I'm gonna take my top hand and stick it underneath the butt crack of my top hip. I'm gonna grab onto my sit bone here, and I'm gonna lift that up towards the ceiling. I'm gonna take 5 breaths here. Again, your pelvic floor is really gonna thank you for creating space, making this area nice, soft, and open. So I'm gonna take my hand, it goes on my sit bone. I'm gonna lift straight up towards the ceiling to create space. Starting to really come up with some of your birth affirmations at the end of pregnancy can be really powerful too. So as I breathe in and down towards my pelvic floor, I know that my birth experience is gonna be exactly what it is supposed to be. It can be really hard to not think of all the unknowns or the uncertainties or be really nervous about giving birth. But just know you're doing what you need to do to prepare your mind and your body for this baby to come. 2 more breaths. Okay, only a few more exercises. So I'm gonna do what's called a leg slide back or an iliac slide back. I'm thinking about pushing my leg back in the socket. So almost if it's like a shotgun, you're pulling that guy back, holding. I'm gonna do 2 of them on each side. During pregnancy, we tend to get really quad dominant, and then our pelvis is shoved forward, same with our hip bones. So we wanna pull those guys back to create space in our pelvic floor. I'm gonna go ahead and do this the same on the other side. I just wanna show you though too. So I'm really thinking about pulling this hip into the socket as I'm laying on my side. So I'm gonna pull back. You should feel a more roundish Kardashian butt when we do this, and then release. Pull back and hold, 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 and release. So 2, we want our abdominals to fire to get that baby in the right position. So I'm gonna lay on my back here just for a couple minutes. I'm gonna squeeze my abdominals nice and tight, giving that baby a hug, and then I'm gonna tap my toes down here 10 times. So I'm really using my abdominals to engage, not letting my transverse abdominis become lazy at the end of pregnancy. And again, I'm breathing here. I'm thinking too about this space of my back really being pushed into the mat as well. Those ribs should not flare as I'm doing this exercise. Okay, last thing, we're gonna go onto our sides. I'm gonna do happy baby on both sides. So I'm gonna hold the outside of my foot. And again, I'm gonna breathe in and down. Like any good personal trainer, I lied to you. There's just one more exercise. 4 breaths on each side. Switching to the other side. I'm gonna pull up, grab the outside of my foot, think about creating space so you can go wherever your leg is comfortable. Here, I'm gonna hold this one in here. 4 breaths. Okay, I'm gonna sit up. In the comments below too, we love hearing where you are in your pregnancy. So let us know what week you are as you're doing these exercises. This last and final exercise is hip internal and external rotation. Especially when we're pushing, we need to have that internal rotation, which can be quite hard at the end of pregnancy. So for this exercise, I'm gonna bend both knees. I'm gonna use my arms to kind of recline back like I'm on a beach. And then I'm gonna be dropping one knee in, the other knee out as well. And then I'm gonna be switching sides, just like a little rainbow. I can hold it here and kind of get comfy. Sometimes this feels uncomfortable if your hip is not used to going in this direction. So only push into a pain-free range. The great thing is that when we do these exercises, we really can start to trust our instincts to know that in labor and delivery, our body is prepped and ready. It knows exactly what to do. Often we find that a lot of moms that do the guides, their providers are saying like, I cannot believe how much you were able to relax your pelvic floor and how much you trusted your body during labor and delivery. We're gonna do a couple more on each side. Remember too that all of these are always found in the app week by week. So starting at 32 weeks, we're really focusing on creating length and space in our hips and our pelvic floor, which all of us pregnant mamas need. All right, thank you so much for joining me today and joining your baby and connecting with one another during this pregnancy prep workout.